Hey, it's Mike from Video74, and I'm kind of going to go old school here and redo one of the first videos I ever put up, which is the Intimidator. I'm going to show you guys how to take this apart real quick. I'm going to tell you right now, you guys that are looking for a gun in the $200 to $400 range, pound for pound, the Alias Intimidator is one of the best markers ever made. Ever. Okay, I own them all. I can tell you right now, the Alias is without a doubt one of the best markers ever. And if you can pick one up between $200 to $400, the gun is an absolute steal. So what we're going to do real quick, I'm going to show you how to take apart an Alias. Just do some basic maintenance on it and to lube it, and should go pretty quick. Okay, first things first, I always do go ahead and pull the bolt out. Get questions all the time on what I should do with the bolt. For the most part, just wiping the bolt down with a clean rag is all you need to do. You don't need to oil this, you don't need to lube it, you don't need to put anything on it. Don't worry about lubing your bolt, because what's going to happen is whatever lubricant you put on these O-rings is going to end up getting into the eyes, and the eyes are going to end up getting blocked. So don't ever lube your bolt. If your bolt is kind of stiff going back and forth, maybe look at putting some lube on the O-rings, but I found that replacing the O-rings gets rid of any of that friction going back and forth. Okay, first things first, we'll go ahead and remove the torpedo regulator. And I'm going to show you a little mod that I do on the torpedo regulators. I use a 90-degree, a regular 90-degree elbow fitting, and a straight fitting. What I do is I put this into a vise with a spare ASA. Let me see if I can find one here. Okay, there we go. And in order to get this to line up perfectly straight like that, what I'll do is I'll take a regular ASA, screw it into it like that, and then I'll put this in a vise and then use the ASA as extra leverage to twist this down so it's nice and flush. This way you can get the fitting to line up behind the trigger guard. And then what I'll do is, depending on when it screws in, from what I found, most of the time the square O-ring or a nice thick O-ring at the base here will allow your regulator to snug up perfectly and be sitting just like that in front of the trigger guard. Just something I kind of like. I don't like having my fittings sticking off to the side. I like them to be lined up perfectly, but that's what I do on my fittings here on my torpedo regulators. I did it on all the rendition Aliases and it works awesome. Alright, first things first, let's go ahead and take apart the torpedo. Torpedo is real easy to take apart. Just unscrew the bottom part. And then what I use is a pair of needle nose pliers. Okay, and pull it out. Now inside of the regulator, you're only going to have three parts. You're going to have what I like to call the coin, and that goes down into the torpedo first. So you have your coin, stick that down in the torpedo first. Then you have your spring, stick that down in there. And then you have your piston. Now, Dow 55 is what I recommend on an Intimidator. It works great. Just use Dow 55. Don't worry about it. Now, on the piston, you're going to see it's got two parts to it. A thicker side, which fits perfectly into the spring, and it's got a side here with a concave, which goes up and depresses the pin. So always make sure that the concave is facing towards the pin. So once you wipe this down and lubricate it, go ahead and stick it down back inside there, screw it back together, and you just rebuilt your torpedo. Now I will tell you that I have seen people make mistakes with their torpedo rig. It's a common mistake to make. The torpedo, as you can see, has two holes. It's got one in the front, one in the back. Okay, the two holes, one is a gauge port, which bypasses the entire rig, and one is an air port. So with the torpedo, if you look inside the hole and you see a black hole, meaning that you don't see anything, it's just black inside there, that is the gauge port. Always leave that side plugged. If you see inside the hole, you see a little brass spring and some brass parts inside there, that's the correct hole that the air is supposed to go into. I can't even tell you how many Aliases I've seen or Intimidators I've seen where people take the fitting and they swap it and they put it over here, and it basically just bypasses the reg. It just turns into a gas through regulator. So make sure that you always get your air hole correct. Okay, next thing we'll take apart is the low pressure regulator. Okay, once again, the low pressure regulator is just like the torpedo. Very simple. You have your piston Now your piston's going to have two parts to it. You're going to see one side with the concave, one side that's a little bit bigger. The side that's a little bigger faces towards the spring. The concave faces towards the pin. So how you do this is when you put this back together, always put your piston in there first with the little concave or the divot facing in first, the big side facing out. Stick that in there first. Then take your spring, stick it in, and then take your coin or your washer, some people call it, but I call it a coin. Put your coin in last. Okay, low pressure regulator has been lubricated and cleaned, very easy. Now what we'll do is we'll lubricate the ram. Take the ram out to clean it. Okay. And then that's the ram. This is real easy to lubricate. I've seen some people, sometimes what they'll do is they'll take they'll take Dow 55 and put it on the entire ram. You don't have to do that. The ram just glides on the O-rings. So just lubricate the O-rings. And so people ask, how much lube should I put on there? Basically, I put just enough on there to where the ram doesn't slide back and forth on its own. So if you put it inside there and you hear the ram go, on its own, put a little bit more lube on there. You kind of want it to stick a little bit in the middle. And then go ahead and drop that inside there. Screw on your adjustable ram cap. I definitely recommend the adjustable ram caps. And the way how I adjust my adjustable ram caps is I want to feel just the very lip of the bolt when I stick my finger down inside there. I mean, just the very lip. I mean, about as thick as a index card. Just the very lip of the bolt sticking into the breech when the gun is aired up. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll show you how to get to your poppet on an Intimidator. Now for the most part, you shouldn't really have to worry about messing with this unless you're getting a leak down your barrel. And in that case, you may have to take a look at your poppet and clean it out. Okay, the first thing I do is always remove the grip screws. I'm kind of doing an advanced way of doing it. And then what you do is they have a grub screw just underneath the LPR block right near the barb. Get my Allen key, there we go. That you have to loosen up. So you give this about 5 turns. You don't have to pull it all the way out. Then what you do when you go to pull this out, you don't have to remove any of the hoses or anything like that. You can actually just stretch it out. There we go. It pops right out, and we should be able to pull the poppet out. There it goes. So that's how you remove your poppet. Loosen up the LPR block and slide it forward and pull out your poppet. So there's your poppet. So we'll go ahead and stick that back into the gun. We'll just kind of clean up that LPR block real quick. Alright. Stick it back on there. And you really want to snug this down tight, or as you're holding your regulator while you're playing, you're going to feel it wiggling. And then what you do is go ahead and slide everything back into the gun. And you just want to be really careful to make sure that there's no wires or hoses or anything kinked in here when you go to tighten this back up again. Okay, now what I'll do is while I'm tightening this back up, I'm going to go through some of my settings that I personally recommend that work really well now. A lot of people say, oh, the gun doesn't work as efficient. No, okay. These settings, I put these settings on every single Alias, every single Intimidator that I tech, and they all shoot phenomenally. Finish out this episode, we're going to do some fan mail. And today's letter is from actually our loyal subscriber, Blaze Storm. Here's the letter. Dear Mike, love your show. As you may know, I consider myself the world's biggest Hanson fan. I didn't know that. If possible, could you please play some Hanson at the end of your show? Keep up the great work. Blaze Storm. P.S. Viva la Nation. Sure. Here's some Hanson for you, Blaze Storm. Considers himself the world's biggest Hanson fan. Enjoy.